Do aliens exist? Aliens definitely exist. There's people that think aliens don't exist and they're like, there's no aliens out there. The only planet that has life is Earth. But when you think about it from a logical standpoint, it makes no sense. Because the sun is a star, and there's billions, maybe even trillions of stars. There's billions of galaxies, and each galaxy has billions of stars. And almost every star has a planet orbiting the star. So when you think about it from a mathematical standpoint, how is it possible out of these billions of galaxies and billions of stars within these galaxies, and almost every star has a planet, how is it possible that Earth is the only planet that has life? And right now, what science is telling us is even within our own solar system, there's moons on Saturn and Jupiter that have frozen moons and possibly have an ocean underneath those moons. So if there's liquid water and the ocean that's underneath these moons have more water than the amount of water on Earth, how is it possible there's nothing swimming in there? Honestly, what I think, we are aliens. You gotta think about all these different types of species on Earth. And you gotta think about how the dinosaurs went extinct. A meteorite hit the Earth. That's what scientists say, right? A meteorite hit the Earth and wiped out almost all life on Earth. So how is there still this many varieties of species? Oh, because the Earth recovered and then life what? It just came out of nowhere? You know what I mean? Oh, we evolved. Evolved from what? Because when you think about it, almost everything went extinct. So I just don't see how, even with this evolution theory, that there could be this many different species that's still alive today, right? All these insects, mammals, animals, you know what I mean? There's just so much diversity on Earth still. And what I think is that we are all aliens. We came from other planets, maybe even other galaxies, planets from far away, orbiting different stars that might be thousands or millions of light years away. What I think is that perhaps these species were frozen in ice. Maybe a part of the planet chipped off. Maybe a meteor hit it, or I don't know exactly how or what happened, but what I think is that these pieces of ice, which would probably span miles, and I think that over time, over millions of years, there were just different frozen ice from outer space just constantly crashing onto Earth. And as we all know, Earth has craters, and I wouldn't even be surprised if these ice just land in the ocean. And over time, as the ice melted, I think that whatever was frozen inside just defrosted and came back to life. And you might be thinking, how is that possible? Well, I think somehow, I don't know the right word for it, but somehow these animals might have been cryogenically frozen in these ice in outer space. And over millions of years, different ice from different planets, different stars and galaxies just traveled slowly, and they all landed on Earth. And that's why there's so much diversity. You have birds, you have humans, you have alligators. You just have so many different types of species on Earth. And that's the only logical conclusion that I could come up with, is that it unfroze and these animals or insects just came back to life. Or maybe they weren't even dead, they were just frozen in time. Even today, there's technology where we can cryogenically freeze a human and possibly bring them back 100 years from now or 200 years from now. Now, the reason why some people volunteer to be cryogenically frozen is because perhaps they have cancer or some type of disease that can't be cured right now, so they cryogenically freeze themselves, and maybe in 100 years, 200 years, there's a cure, and then they also figure out how to unfreeze and bring them back to life to cure the cancer or the disease that they had, and then they could live in a different time. But the big issue right now is they can only cryogenically freeze you, but they don't know how to bring you back to life right now. And perhaps in the future, scientists will figure out a way to unfreeze them and be able to bring them back back to life and cure their cancer disease. So, when I think about that, I think about, well, could it be possible that there's chunks of ice in outer space, far, far away, frozen with different types of animals and bugs and other types of human species, as we would call them, and eventually over millions of years they'll crash onto different planets, and if they crash onto a habitable planet, they'll survive, and if they crash onto a planet that's not habitable, then they're dead. So that's what I think, and I really do think that aliens exist, because I'm pretty sure there's definitely another habitable planet, maybe even a similar sun with a planet that's similar distance, like our solar system. If that's possible, it could have almost the same ingredients, because you gotta think about our planet and our sun is basically just, in theory, from the Big Bang. So what makes up the Earth, right? The ingredients of the Big Bang, the particles. So when you think about it in that way, then that means that all the ingredients that made up Earth, these ingredients should be everywhere in outer space, right? And somewhere, maybe millions of light years away, those same ingredients could have formed a similar second Earth and a similar star like our sun. And when everything is similar like that, it's possible that there are aliens that are very similar to us. There's planets that are full of diamonds. There's planets that are full of gold. So I'm thinking that from that standpoint, perhaps all the gold and diamonds from Earth just came from outer space over millions of years. Chunks of outer space dust, rocks that broke off of these planets that's full of gold or planets that's full of diamonds, and it just crashed onto Earth, and that's why we have so many different types of metals and natural resources. I think they just crashed onto Earth, and perhaps maybe Earth had its own life and natural resources and metals too, but I think that outer space also provided additional resources to Earth. That's just what I think from a logical standpoint. I'm no scientist, I'm not an astronaut, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a theorist, so I don't really know if this is true or anything, but I just wanted to give my thoughts on this topic because it's interesting.